Okay, so welcome back again, everyone, to this February edition of the APPA Agora, featuring very excited to feature our first Chinese guest on the Agora, Professor Xiaojun Ding, from Xi'an Jiaotong University in the famous city of Xi'an, about which we want to hear a little bit more from you. We know the terracotta warriors are there. It's a very historic place. So, in any case, as you know, the format is quite simple. I'm going to introduce our featured guests, and then I will ask some questions that I had prepared that I think you'll be interested in hearing her address. And then I'll be very happy to open the floor to any and all of you who wish to jump in and to ask questions about Xiaojun, her own career and her own practice, and also, I think, in a larger sense, what is going on in China with philosophical practice, which I think is very interesting and exciting. So that's going to be our plan for the next little while. And now I'm going to try to spotlight you, Xiaojun. I'm a little bit rusty on Zoom, so bear with me. And we'll see. There you are. I think you're in the full frame now. And
Yeah.
are you still there? Yes, we are. Okay.
Mm.
So first, let me just briefly introduce you by saying that Xiaojun Ding is an associate professor in the Department of Philosophy at Xi'an Jiaotong University in China. Her scholarly work spans several philosophical disciplines, including philosophical practice, philosophy of technology, moral psychology, logic, and epistemology. She is particularly noted for her contributions to philosophical counseling and therapy, where she has significantly influenced both theoretical frameworks and practical applications. Ding has authored over 50 research articles in prestigious journals tackling complex topics such as the ethics of artificial intelligence and the role of philosophical practice in mental health. Her interdisciplinary approach merges moral psychology, epistemology, and philosophy of science, focusing on the practical implementation of philosophical insights to address contemporary social challenges. Additionally, she's secured many research grants already and has been a co-organizer of some very important conferences and also has been a translator on some, I think, very significant projects to introduce some Western writings on philosophical practice to a Chinese audience. And I would like to hear about all of these activities. But first, Xiaojun, go back. Let's go back to you. What got you interested in philosophy to begin with?
You mean how I become, a philosophy student and then a researcher?
Yes, how did you first
Yeah.
become attracted to philosophy?
Yeah. Um, when I think about this question, when some of my students or some professors ask me, I always go back to a long way when I was very little. Actually, when speaking of my educational background, I studied physics and chemistry during high school. But even during that period, I'm very interested in philosophy. We have some, during between our students, we have some popular journals, not academic ones, but I'm particularly interested in these philosophical ones. I was even called a philosopher by my students, by my classmates. So during that period, I'm already getting very interested in philosophy, and then when I entered the university, so it's kind of not only I chose philosophy, but somehow the philosophy major of our university kind of chose me. So I became a philosophy student at Nanjing Normal University in 2005. And then after 4 years of undergraduate and then 3 years of graduate study, I entered Nanjing University, Professor Pen. Yeah, and then that's how I started philosophical counseling practice and also research.
Oh, fantastic. So it sounds like
Yeah.
the philosophy chose you. As you say, you didn't choose philosophy. You were probably born this way. I think some philosophers are born this way, and we follow that path. And
Yeah,
you
it's kind of magic.
Yes, you were at a great university. I mean, Nanjing, for those among us who aren't aware, but Nanjing is one
Mhm.
of the top five universities in China. It's like the Ivy League there, and the philosophy department is very strong in
Mm.
analytic, in continental, in Asian, in all the traditions. But Professor Pan, who was our revered colleague and good friend, is one of the leading pioneers of philosophical practice. So he introduced you to it initially during your studies at Nanjing?
Yeah. So when I was still in Nanjing Normal University for my graduate, for my master's degree, my supervisor there was actually a good friend of Professor Pan. So for my PhD research, the my prof my professor Professor Zhai from Nanjing Normal University introduced me to Professor Pan. So I followed Professor Pan for my PhD study. And I think during so that's the year of 2012. During that period, Professor Pan was kind of very enthusiastic about philosophical counseling. He told us that he went to Korea for some humanity therapy conference, I think. And then he met some very influential philosophical practitioners like you and also some others from Europe and also from Canada. So he became inspired by you and some others, and he told his students that he suddenly found that philosophy actually can be useful, can be practical. So he had taught philosophy and studied philosophy for at least 20 or 30 years, but he suddenly found that philosophy seemed to be useless, not only for the professor, but also for the students and also for the general public. So he's trying to, during that period, he was kind of trying to find some way to make philosophy and also logic to be useful. And if we cannot find some job at the colleges, how can we survive? How can we find some job to provide our families and also ourselves? So this is a question he's very interested during that time. And I'm because I became his PhD student in 2012. I was asked by him to do this kind of research, but to be honest, during that period, I don't know what philosophical counseling is, and I was also very skeptical about what I can really, benefit from it, especially 10 years or more than 10 years ago, right? So during that period, there are not many philosophical practitioners in China. So for me to do a PhD dissertation, I have to find some papers, especially to do some literature review. But during that period, I cannot find a lot of papers or books. Of course, during that period, I have learned a lot from you. We had some emails communication. But besides that, I don't have many access to the literature, philosophical practice or counseling. So I'm so afraid. I don't think I can get my PhD through doing philosophical counseling. But Professor Penn was so dedicated to this research. He's so sure that philosophical practice is promising. If I started very early to do this kind of research, I will be a pioneer, just like Marinov in America and North America. So that's how he told me. And I was a good student, in this kind of sense. So I followed him and I agreed that so I will do this kind of research. During those years in 2013 and 14, and then maybe 15. Many philosophical practitioners were invited by Professor Pan to come to Nanjing University to do some workshops and give some lectures, and we are getting more and more familiar with philosophical counseling. Yeah.
Yes, and I remember, I don't know if you were there. I think I was first there in 2013 or 14 in his logic laboratories for
Yeah.
the students. Were you there at that time? You must have been.
No, so it's a pity that I wasn't there
Ah,
during your first visit to Nanjing University. I visited San Jose State during 2014 to
mhm.
15. So that's, I think during that period you visited Nanjing University for the first time.
Yes.
Yeah, and then we meet each other in person. I think for the first time in 2019. I also see John here. Nice to meet you.
Well, that's great. So you ha had a lot of courage then to be, it takes courage to be a pioneer. It doesn't matter what country you're in to do something new. It's always going to meet with some opposition or skepticism. That's very natural. But I think that
Hmm.
that Professor Pan has a great vision, and he was able to
Yeah,
communicate to you. And now I want to share a picture just to let's fast forward. So you completed your PhD. You actually got a professorship at Xi'an Jiaotong
yeah,
University. That's fantastic.
yeah.
Could you explain to us? I have lectured at a couple of Jiaotong universities in Shanghai. There's one
Shanghai?
in Shanghai,
Yeah.
yes, and you have one in Xi'an. So, what is Jiaotong like a branch? Does it have many
Yeah.
branches in China?
Not a very big one, but we do have like five or six Jiaotong universities in China, including in Taiwan. So,
Hmm.
firstly, there was just the Jiaotong University in Shanghai,
Hmm.
and then in like more like 50 or 60, almost 60 years ago, during a very special period, in the history of China, modern China. So part of the Jiaotong University in Shanghai moved to Xi'an and became Xi'an Jiaotong University. Yeah,
Oh, very
and
nice.
also yeah, there are some other Jiaotong University in Beijing
Hmm.
and also in like Chengdu or Chongqing. Yeah.
Great. So I mean
Mm.
your publication record is fantastic, and I've been part of that with you. We've worked together on some
Yeah.
selecting. I know you've selected some English works to translate into
Yeah.
Chinese, and now there are more Chinese scholars invested in this. I want to share for our friends a picture of our group picture from the conference in Lanzhou, just so they can see. And for everyone's information, this is just a picture of a limited size conference because the government restricts with less than 1 year's notice. The government restricts the number of attendees. If you give more than 1 year's notice, you can have more than 100. But in this case, I think the restriction was under 100, something like 80, because it was just a less than 1 year planning. But I want to show you this picture. We're both in it, and it's really quite extraordinary. So you can see from the earlier times that Xiaojun is talking about, which actually is not that long ago. Now we can see a tremendous interest in in the number of people in China and Korea also who are invested in doing research and practice. So here is the whole group, okay, from November 2012.
Wow.
Yeah, we were in the University
Mhm.
of Lanzhou, and this is,
Woo.
by Chinese standards, a small conference because the lead time was less than a year, so they could only restrict attendance. There would have been more people had there been more lead time. But you can see there's Xiaojun, and there we are. Professor Pan is front and
Zhongyi, yeah,
center,
Pan,
one of the
Peter.
main organizers.
Yeah.
So this was a really interesting group, and we had a fantastic event. But now I want to ask you a more specific question because you had mentioned humanities therapy, and this initiative I remember very well because it was our Korean colleagues who reconceived philosophical counseling as humanities therapy in order to collaborate with a larger group. So, work being done in art therapy, music therapy, dance therapy, poetry therapy, calligraphy in East Asia, tea ceremony, many, many aspects of Asian culture and Western culture are therapeutic and derive from the humanities, not the sciences. So, our East Asian friends, being, I would like to say, very Confucian and collaborative, realized that they would be stronger coming together, and so this humanities therapy idea was born. And of course, philosophers are more or less at the foundation of it. So I want you to explain. I'm going to show a smaller picture now. I don't know why you're not in it. You were one of the organizers, but we had a picture toward the end of the conference with some of the speakers. and I want you to explain two terms to our audience, okay? The first one
Okay.
is humanities therapy, and the second one is this notion of human enhancement and modern philosophy, which is very, very
Uh,
interesting. So, because we're not that familiar with the way that the Chinese have kind of rebranded this, you and the Koreans have done a great job. Are you seeing this picture now?
yeah.
Okay, so I can't read the Chinese, of course, but underneath our friends can read the English. It says the fourth International Conference on Humanities Therapy and Techno Society, and I would like you to explain a bit about that first, and then secondly, to explain the sixth Conference on Human Enhancement and Modern Philosophy. So could you give us some insight into those terms, please, Xiaojun?
Yeah, so actually, there were two conferences combined together for the last Lanzhou conference. So first, there was the Humanities Therapy Conference, mainly organized by the Korean colleagues. And so I also hosted this conference 2 years ago in Xi'an. Yeah. For the term humanities therapy, just as you mentioned, before that, humanities therapy is kind of expansion or some kind of I think also a kind of invention by the Korean colleagues, based on, I'm not so sure, but as I can see, I think the kind of reinvention of philosophical counseling. Because I see that for the Korean colleagues who are doing philosophical humanities therapy, they're basically from the philosophy departments and also some other arts departments or schools, and they are trying to think about or to revitalize the therapeutic utility of philosophy, of literature, of like dancing and poets and many arts. I mean, many different styles of humanities. This is also a kind of a battle between humanity and the science, especially technology. For the ICHTT conference theories, there is also a key word, a key concept, which is techno society, right? Techno society is also known as technological society. It means that in especially when we move to the 21st century, the technologies, especially the digital technologies, the artificial intelligence, have changed our life so much, and also our mental life. Because of, or partly because of this kind of influences or factors, our people are becoming more and more depressed in different degrees, and also we are wondering what the meaning of life is. I think in response to this kind of questions, existential questions, the Korean colleagues are trying to answer these questions from humanistic ways, like from a philosophical point of view, and also they are trying because philosophy is mostly theoretical, at least traditionally, right? And also they want to make it more connected with our actions and with our bodies because of the popularity of embodied cognition or embodied intelligence. So I think it's a very good combination between theory, practice. So sometimes we can learn what the ancient philosophers, what the ancient wisdom told us, and also from time to time, in that way, we can read or we can talk to each other, to talk with some philosophers, and also they are trying to tell us to dance, to meditate, and to do other activities, to do a kind of different things to make our bodies move. I think it's also a very good insight. To ask us to combine the theoretical inspection, some speculative activities with our physical activities. It will sometimes it will have some better effects than the some purely theoretical activities. I think that's basically what the humanities therapy research are doing. As for the
Just hang on. Let's just, that's a lot to, you've
okay,
unpacked a lot. So I want to just emphasize a couple of things,
yeah,
because it's not just humanities therapy. As you say, it's humanities therapy in techno society. And we have, as you probably know, similar problems worldwide. Every technologically developed society is undergoing a meaning crisis. And
yeah.
it's been addressed in different ways. In the West, psychologists are interested in it, philosophers, other social scientists. We've all noticed it, we've all felt it. And the AI is just the latest appurtenance of a problem in which really the notion of what it means to be human has changed. Technology
Yeah.
has, and the fact that we are teleported, and the pandemic contributed to this with the
Hmm.
teleportation of consciousness into this noosphere. Here we are on a on a virtual platform, and we are disembodied here. So we lose connection with our bodies. For small children, it's been a disaster. That's why education did not work very well for smaller children on Zoom, because they were actually in a sensory deprivation environment. We have only sound and sight here. There's no taste, touch, and smell. So it for young children to be socialized and for cognitive development, they need to activate all their senses. And
Yeah.
the Zoom is powerful. Look, we're meeting from all over the world. We have Julie on the West Coast, and we have and you're on the West Coast. We have people here from Eastern Europe and from Italy, and from and you in China. So this is a great power, but the price we pay for it is that it changes our self-conception. What does it mean to be human? In a techno,
Hmm.
techno. So that's one thing. The other thing I think that has been very, very smart is that our Korean colleagues and also, or you as Chinese collaborators on this, we're not trying to go to war or to provoke psychology. So we could not avoid this in the United States. As soon as we started doing something that we called counseling, this is going back 20 or 30 years, but immediately it raised a lot of hackles because the counseling psychology profession sort of wants to own the whole idea of talking to people therapeutically. So they viewed us as intruders or poachers on their territory. But by situating the philosophical part of counseling in humanities, it's you're dissociating it from social science, you're dissociating it from medical science. And for this reason, I believe you were able to gain very strong support from universities and governments for this kind of activity. Yes? And we didn't have
Hmm.
that much support initially in the United States. We had to really win it.
Yeah, I think it's what you just said. It's just exactly the situation in Korea. They had a lot of financial support from their government. Yeah, so for the next humanitarian therapy conference, it's also supported by their government, the Ministry of Education, I think. Yeah, that's very great.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I will look forward very greatly to Western countries learning from this. I would love to see some Department of Education sponsoring a philosophical counseling course one day. It would show that we can be as enlightened as you. So that's one aspect of it, which I think is really great and successful. The other thing that's interesting, and it's not really necessarily significant across the field, but it just so happens that Professor Pan, who's I guess the leading pioneer in China overall. And also Professor Yoongi Ri, who we know very well from Seoul.
Yeah,
Um, and I also have the same, we all have the same background in decision theory.
yeah,
And, which
yeah.
is just maybe coincidental or maybe not, because people come to this from many, many
Mm.
walks of life. Continental philosophy, existentialism, phenomenology, analytic traditions, value theory. There are many, many ways of approaching this. And the Asian wisdom traditions, as you say, are very relevant now, much more so than before. But decision theory does play a role. And I think sometimes people find trouble in
Mhm.
life really just because they make bad choices. And it's not anything to do with their bodies or their brains or their environments. They just make bad choices. So I think decision theory also has that role to play. Were you exposed to this when you worked with Professor Pan?
Yeah, I think we discussed this topic in Lanzhou, right? So I also found it very interesting. Both, all of all the three of you have very similar backgrounds, academic backgrounds. So I think I'm also considering what's the difference between me and the three of you. I don't studied. I haven't studied anything. Not anything, but I just studied very little about diffusion theory from Professor Pan and sometimes from your lectures. I also have enthusiasm about the philosophy of science and technology, especially the AI ethics. And also Professor Yong Yi Ri and also Professor Pan, they are also very enthusiastic about the analytic tradition of philosophy or the logical analysis. I think that they are kind of very similar in their interest, including you. So for the connection between the different research topics or areas like philosophical counseling, the philosophy of technology or science, and also decision theory, I think they are all of them are very closely connected to not only the theoretical dimension, but also the practical dimension of the people or of the world. We want to know how we can make better decisions, how we can live a better life, how to live philosophically, and also when the technology and the sciences make develop, we want to know how we should to confront different problems or some issues in a philosophical way. I think so. All these topics or problems are actually connected together. So I think that maybe that's why all of you have very similar interests.
I agree, but as I say, that may just be coincidental, and I think that we're agreed that almost any branch of philosophy can have some application, and it's
Yeah.
just up to the practitioner to use the tool in some concrete, helpful way, and that's what makes our field so interesting. We're not uniformly formed in exactly the same mold. There's no two
Mhm.
philosophers are alike, and no two practitioners are alike, and I think that's a wonderful thing for us and it should continue. So now on to the human enhancement and modern philosophy. Could you unpack that for us, please? This is a little bit new to me as well.
So actually, human enhancement is another conference topic combined with the humanities therapy. For the co-host of the Lanzhou conference, there is Professor Yang Qingfeng from Fudan University in Shanghai. He is doing AI, philosophy, and ethics with Professor Pan. So the human enhancement basically talks about how the humans can enhance their capabilities or their physical skills and also their mental health in with the advancement or with the utilization of the skills, especially the technology like the BCI or some cyber technologies, to enhance our cognitive abilities, to make your memory better, your memorization abilities better, and also they want to know if we adopt this kind of technologies to enhance our human capabilities, what kind of issues they might bring up. You just mentioned the concept of self. Right, if we use this kind of technology to enhance the capabilities of the people, there might be some problem of they might lose their selves. They might they can even become a different people. The problem of self-identity, and also there might be some ethical problems, like the rich people can have better access to the technologies. What about the poor people, the poor ones? and also there are many other ethical and philosophical questions. So that's how the concept of in human enhancement are considered in the Chinese domain.
Great. So that's how it interfaces with modern philosophy because you're as
Mhm.
philosophers taking up the challenge of contributing to human enhancement in the face of all these technological changes. So it's really a parallel road, isn't it, with
Yeah.
humanities therapy and techno society.
Hmm. Yeah.
And our viewers, our participants should also be mindful that there are going to be two conferences in Korea this summer, right? One
Yeah.
on each topic. Are you
Hmm.
going
Do you
to
go
either?
there?
Well, I just received an email from Professor Jung and from Jung Ri, so I'll probably go to the one in Seoul. That's in July.
Then
Uh,
we can meet again.
are you going to be there?
Yeah, I will.
Great.
And
Yeah, I'll
also
probably go
Professor
there.
Pan.
And then the other one's in Kangwon National University, and
Yeah.
that's
And
humanities
mhm.
therapy again, right? That's where humanities therapy started,
Yeah.
really. So I've been there
Mhm.
twice. It's a great place. I hope that
Yeah.
some of our European and American, North American friends will make sure those calls for papers are circulated to the APPA so that everyone will have a chance. And then most of you know, at least the audience knows, that we have another international conference, ICPP, coming up in Croatia in June this year. It's in Zagreb this year. It'll be hosted there for the first time in Croatia, and some of us are definitely going to be going. So I don't know about the Chinese contingent. Do you have any plans to travel to Europe for the summer, or are you too busy?
Maybe not. I've talked with my department chair. So just for the this June, we are still having the spring semester. So I still have many courses to teach. Yeah,
Now, don't we all?
the
But
PG.
we're
Mm.
generally done by we finish in May, so I know you have a longer term. But you will be in Korea for the.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I'll look forward to seeing you.
Mm.
So, what are you working on right now? What is your current? I mean, you're probably doing more than one thing, but what is your main current project in terms of philosophical practice, or you have more than one?
So yeah, in terms of philosophical counseling, I'm doing basically theoretical research and not so much practice as you and our other Korean or American colleagues. So for the philosophical counseling research for myself, I'm doing the kind of how we can use the traditional Chinese philosophy, especially Confucianism, and also Taoism, to do this kind of counseling or therapy. Actually, I have learned a lot from you. Not only, but of course, not only you, but many other foreigners, Westerners, Western philosophical practitioners. Because when I was a student, I basically studied analytic philosophy, the Western philosophy. At that time, I haven't studied a lot about the traditional Chinese philosophy. But then when I get to know more and more foreign scholars, I realized that since I'm Chinese, I'm kind of being expected to know more about the traditional Chinese philosophy. You may remember that you once wrote to me about the Book of Changes and also some like Taoism, Dao De Jing, right? Actually, I found that I know less than you. I don't know so much about this kind of Chinese classics. And also I'm also influenced by Peter Attlo. He's also very interested, especially in Confucianism. He read a lot about the books of Confucius, the analytics, and also he's asked me to collaborate with him to do some kind of comparative study about Confucianism and also with Stoicism and also some other philosophy with Western philosophical practice. So I found that very interesting. So although I'm Chinese, but I know less about Chinese philosophy than you guys.
Well,
And
except that you can read,
so
except you can read Chinese, so you have a big
yeah, I can
advantage.
read. Yeah.
We're dependent on translations, which we can never trust completely, but you could at least read the authentic language and make up your own mind what is being
But
asserted.
although I can read Chinese, but you know, these kind of Chinese classics were written in not the modern simplified Chinese. We also need to have some translation,
Yeah.
you know, translate those classics to some simplified Chinese. Otherwise, I don't know what they are talking about.
Sure. Well, it's the
Yeah,
same. We have the same thing with Plato or with the Attic
yeah,
Greek.
yeah,
It's
you're
like,
right.
and it all gets translated into modern, into European languages. So we even in order to study our classics, we're dependent on translations as well for the most part. But I've noticed this, and it's surprising to me. It's a very interesting phenomenon that, I mean, China has really been in a kind of exchange with the West and India also, because we have many Indian students, and they also have tended to become divorced from their own philosophical traditions.
Mhm.
I end up teaching Indian philosophy to Indians who have never read the Bhagavad Gita. I end up teaching Chinese philosophy to East Asian students who've never read the Tao Te Ching. And it's mind opening for them. It's just a Westerner who has a chance to hold up a mirror to them to show them how great their own wisdom traditions are. You guys got a lot of technology from us, and we got a lot of wisdom traditions from you. I think it's been a very good exchange both ways, but now it's important for everyone to catch up with their own
Yeah.
philosophical roots. So that's
Hmm.
something else that philosophical practice can do. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, sometimes we kind of have forgotten that we have such treasure, you know, from our ancestors. Actually, they are not, although they are very old, but they are very insightful. So, but if I was told by some Chinese scholars that the Chinese philosophy are very good, but maybe I will not be so impressed. But then I found that even Marinov found the Book of Changes are very interesting, very useful. Then I think that, oh yeah, I really should take you know read this kind of classics very seriously. Yeah.
Yes, and it has been, and not for everyone. I mean, you one has to be always with the client and see what's the client's orientation. But whenever we brush up against a case where rationality fails, I've had so many clients who are exceptionally rational, but sometimes still cannot, by rationality alone, see a way through their issue. Then we can call on the intuitions, and there are many traditions
Hmm.
for doing that. But the I Ching calls on the intuitions, I think, more powerfully than any other ancient source. So it's been extremely useful for people. And of course, we
Hmm.
get criticism also from other rationalists who say, "Well, this isn't rational," but again, they're neglecting the power of the
Yeah.
intuitive. So I think if it works in English, of all things, it could certainly work in it could work in Mandarin too. I have no doubt. So
Yes.
that's another topic. So what kind? But you've done many other translation projects. You and Professor Pan and I'm not sure who else was collaborating. Was Zhang Li Zhang on the? You translated a huge number of papers from our journal
Yeah.
into a volume. That was just a couple of years ago. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, so Professor Pan wanted to introduce more of the influential philosophical practice literature to the Chinese audience, to the readers. So he, I think, contacted you and also Professor Yong Yuri. Both of you are very generous. So you provided some articles from your journal, and also Yong Yuri provided some journals from some papers from their Journal of Humanities Therapy.
Hmm.
Yeah, and also some papers, some of your papers published in somewhere else, I think. So we combined these papers together and we translated them into Chinese, and these Chinese translation of your papers were published by the Nanjing University Press two years ago, I think. Yeah.
Hmm. Yes, I think
Hmm.
so. And I mean, this
Yeah.
is very, very great honor for us because the APPA journal, has been now we're into our 20th year. So we have
Ah,
19 complete volumes and that's more than 3,000 pages of core literature by many practitioners worldwide. So it was a wonderful collaboration to see this interest from you and your team. And then you selected. I mean, we didn't tell you what to do. We said, well, here are the abstracts. Pick what you
yeah.
most relevant,
So,
and we were happy to give you the content to translate. But you're being
yeah.
very
Mm,
modest. You translated like 3 dozen papers into this
I think
huge
so.
Chinese
Yeah.
volume, something like that.
Hmm.
And I mean
Hmm.
that's an immense amount of work. So I have to thank you and
Not just
congratulate you.
the translators, are not just me and Professor Pan. We have some other translators. Actually, I selected the papers. You provided a lot of papers to us, and then I selected them based on different aspects of philosophical practice, like the history of philosophical practice, the like the ancient resources of philosophical practice, and like the case studies of philosophical practice, and some methodological issues of philosophical practice. So we divided them into different categories.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's just a great thing to do, and we're very
Mhm.
appreciative of your cross-cultural efforts and we're always happy to share our work. But not everyone in China speaks English or reads English as well as you. So it was a great thing that you did, I think, to open more doors to Chinese philosophers. So before I open the floor, I have one more question for you, if you don't mind. So what's your vision? I mean, you're a young pioneer. You've been very active, and you have a great career in front of you yet. So, how do you see the growth of what's your vision for the next 5, 10, 20 years of philosophical practice in China?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. I think so. Although at the first beginning, I'm not so optimistic about philosophical practice like Professor Pan, but after more than 10 years of studying and also investigation and doing different kinds of research and also attending different kind of conferences with different scholars globally. I think philosophical practice, especially philosophical counseling and therapy, would be very helpful in the coming digital area in the age of AI. You just asked me about my research topic recently, right? So actually, we are doing more and more research in combine the AI technology of physical counseling. We are trying to design and to how to implement protocol practice or counseling based on large language models. I think that's very interesting because in the area of AI, the mental issues will become more and more apparent and more serious. I think, as I can see from our students and also from people around me. They are having more and more mental issues in China. Like you just mentioned about they have a lot of issues about the meaning of life, and especially with the advancement of AI technology, a lot of people might get replaced, right? And also, we don't know how we are unique from the AI because AI technology, the system can do a lot of things they can do better. But for our human beings, if we can, if we have like kind of if we can try to develop ourselves in a philosophical way, like you can meet different kind of philosophers or philosophical counselors and learn and enhance your critical thinking skills. And you can learn how to think about how to investigate issues from a philosophical view of point. I think that will make you irreplaceable, replaceable by the AI technology or system. And when we want to use AI technology to do this kind of philosophical counseling thing. We are actually trying to revitalize the wisdom, especially the ancient wisdom of Confucius, Socrates, Aristotle, etc., etc. Nowadays we have to meet even in the kind of Zoom or some other virtual platforms to and talk to some human counselors. But we have then there are some limitations about the accessibility. Like in China, there are not so many philosophical counselors. But with the help of AI technology, maybe we can design some Marinov, agent. The guests or the clients can just chat with the AI agent of you, and the AI agent can provide counseling service to the guests in a way that you actually might have to how you might have talked with the clients. I think that's very interesting, and also that's a very interesting way of how we embrace the technology, the AI technology. And also, I think with the help of the AI technology, we can also kind of be liberated from the work because in the old days, for the human counselors, we have to do a lot of work. But with the help of AI technology, actually the agent can help me to actually do part of our work. But human counselors have to supervise the AI agent. So maybe sometimes there might be some ethical issues. Then the human counselors have to stop the AI agent and take over to continue this process. That's how we are trying to design our Confucius counseling agent, and also
Yeah, go ahead.
and yeah, you just mentioned we have translated a lot of upper papers into Chinese. During that translation, I think we translated one of Peter Rupp's paper on AI counselor. I think that paper was very interesting and had a very good vision about how AI technology can be utilized by our human counselor in the 21st century. I think, we also want to do this in China.
Well, that's very ambitious, and I like it. I'm going to be a skeptic. It's my turn,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we'll talk
We
more
talk
about
about
this.
this topic,
We'll
right?
talk more about this in Korea. I had a conversation with GPT not long ago, and I asked it if it could pass a Turing test, and it said to me, "Well, that's a really interesting question." And in the end, it backed off, and it said, "I can't really pass it. Depends on the test." But he said, "I cannot really fool someone into thinking I'm human." And then I asked it if it understood what it was saying, and it said, "Definitely not. I do not understand anything in the way that a human does." That was the
Mhm.
AI talking, but that's a paradox because if it doesn't understand the way humans understand, then how does it know that it doesn't understand the way we understand? This is not trivial. All right, this is a very deep problem, but I commend what you're doing, and I have to tell our audience before I open the floor, which I promise to do in a minute. This has been so interesting. One thing you did that was very practical in Lanzhou was that you were able to integrate AI into the speeches. So when people got up on the stage, and so I took my turn and gave a 30-minute talk in English with PowerPoint, but there was a simultaneous translation going on
Yeah,
in Mandarin, in Chinese, being typed by the AI into the screen, and the AI was learning our speech patterns as we spoke. It was correcting itself. So it was translating simultaneously, but then as we
yeah,
finished our sentences, it finished its translations and it got a very good rhythm with us. And then when Chinese speakers got up, it did the same thing for us English people. It was translating your Mandarin into English type on the screen in real time. So this was a very beautiful display, but it took a lot of technology to make this work. You guys had done a very good job of prepping, and I want to want to tell you, they tried the same thing in Fuzhou. You remember I went afterwards to launch the Tao
Yeah.
Te Ching book. And they tried
Mm-hmm.
this in the bookstore. It totally failed. So they needed you to come down there. They had the same technology. They had the same app, but they couldn't run the app. But we had human translators. And at the end of the day, I think that the audience appreciated the technology, but related better to the humans who were doing the translation.
Mm-hmm.
I think this
Yeah.
it should be a tool. It is a tool. It's not a god. It doesn't know more than we know, and it's not going to
Yeah.
be able
They're
to do
always
things that we
tools.
can't do. Just
Mm-hmm.
remember the cautionary tale that I love to tell my students when this topic comes up is that, there were optimists at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution who said, oh, this is going to save us all so much labor. Now the human being will be freed from hard work and we'll be able to devote ourselves to beautiful, creative, imaginative, artistic pursuits. Yeah, right. Tell this to the factory workers who ended up being transplanted from agrarian slaves to industrial slaves, working 7 days a week, 14 hours a day at the machines, right? So it's a two-edged sword. I'm just saying that there are all these positive aspects that you have summarized, but it's always a two-edged sword because people will try to use the tool to grow their own power and to disempower others as well as to empower them. So I think we still have to be human about this and remember that we
Yeah.
are the ones who are inventing this. It should not be allowed to reinvent us. At least that's what I believe at the moment. And if you can figure out a way to turn AI agents into, if you can take a human being and digitize that person's style of philosophical counseling, then more power to you. I mean, but be careful not to replace yourself as a professor. Right? I mean, if it can be done for philosophical counseling, it could be done. If don't let university administrators think that they can replace you with an AI. That would be. I ask my students this, and would you prefer a real professor, or would you prefer an AI to teach you? Well, what are they going to say? Of course, they're going to say they prefer a professor because they don't want to get a bad grade. But who knows what they prefer, right? We don't know what the next generation will end up with. So we live in an interesting world. Isn't that a Chinese thing? May you live in interesting times, right? Isn't that, one of the one of the Chinese sayings we're all fond of? So anyway, Xiaojun, I want to open the floor
Okay.
and let's we have some great colleagues in the house. So if anyone wants to ask a question or speak or introduce yourself to Xiaojun, please go for it. Put your hand up electronically. And Julia, you're there. Okay. Julia, please
Uh, I have so many questions for you, Dr. Ding. I'm wondering, can I get your email address? Could you share your email address so I
Yeah.
can write you my questions? I was a Buddhist monk in South Korea for several years, and I would love to talk to you about the intersection of Socratic philosophy and Buddhism
Yeah.
and
That would be great.
therapy. That would be very fun.
do you want to
So,
put
Yeah.
your email in the chat room?
Of course.
Of
Yeah.
course,
Of
I
course.
have it. Julia, I can send it to you, but if
okay.
Xiaojun wants to just share her email in the chat room, then everybody can grab it, okay? If you want to do it that way.
Yes, thank you very much.
There it is. Thank you. Was that it? You want to ask a question? Or
Well, I'm wondering, since you said that one of the questions is how to live a better life. So I was thinking, now that's the topic of Socrates in the Republic, namely the good. So since better and best are variations of the good, do you have an idea of what the good life is in your philosophy? Or
Uh,
what do people typically say they mean by I want to live a better life?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think there might be various perspectives to this question. So since I'm in China, and for my own philosophy, I learned a lot from Confucius. So I want to share some of his perspectives, his wisdom with our audience. So according to Confucianism, so a good life is a life that you don't have any like you are so you're not worried. So for Confucius, for people with of different ages, there are different standards of being a good life. So I'm not right now almost 40. So for me, 40不惑. We have the saying that 40不惑. 40 means 40. When you turned 40, you should there should be nothing that can perplex you. You will have no, everything will become so clear to you. Even something bad happened to you, you know why it might happen, and you know how you should react to it. So I think that kind of resonates with the wisdom of the Stoics, that whatever happens, so it is not the fact is. Yes, the fact itself that disturbs you, but how you look at them. Confucius actually had this kind of very similar wisdom. So when you turn 40 or 30 or 70, when you turn 40, I'm not sure it's 60 or 70, but if you get elder, you can do whatever you want, because whatever you want, if you are living a philosophical life, whatever you want will be something good, not something bad for the society or for the others. But for when you are young, you have to practice a lot, so that when you get elder, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, that's 70, Xiaojun. That's 70. I
70,
remember the
70, right?
as well because I've reached that age now. So he says when you get to 70, he said, when I reach 70, whatever my desires no longer conflicted with any norms, social norms, or so I was in harmony with everything. But you got to
Yeah.
wait a while for that. Anyway.
So Confucius is your standard for the good, for that people in China.
Yeah, for Confucianism is very influential in China. Although I haven't studied a lot about Confucianism when I was a PhD philosophy student, but when we were young, as when we went to the elementary school and high school, we have to study Confucianism, Taoism in our textbooks, but not too much. But we will pick some pieces of the classic texts, and the teachers will teach us to read and to recite the classics. But since we were basically children, very young, we don't know, or we cannot understand the insights behind the text.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
you.
Julia. Nice to see you.
You too.
And we have two more hands up. So let me go to Karen and then to Patricia. Okay, go ahead, Karen.
So I don't know how you all want to interpret this, but I had a little happening that's happened really 2 or 3 times before. I have pictures, and it hasn't happened for a while, but I'm sort of flat. I don't know what to make of this great significance. I have a cat, and it's close to supper time, but she goes to the shelf behind me, and she has pulled out St. Thomas Aquinas' Treatise on Happiness, and it's on the floor. I'm not kidding. She's pulled the same book out several times, and at this moment, I had to share this happy. She's getting a sign. I mean it. She's done this several times. She picks up St. Thomas, and I think that's definitely the same book at least one other time. What does that mean?
Thanks for sharing this case or story. It's very interesting, but I'm really not so sure about the meaning of the act of your cat. Maybe there might be some signal of
I don't know. It's mystifying to me.
Is this a philosophical question? It sounds like a scientific question.
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't have an explanation except this is, intervention of some kind.
But the book has
Except maybe
some,
there's something in the book binding that's
yeah, some
appetizing to the cat. Have
special
you thought
smell.
about that? Maybe the
I
glue.
don't know. It's not anything particular. It's this book is paperback. It's not any particular good chewy thing to chew on.
Oh,
And maybe you handled it when you were opening tuna fish.
No. I'm kidding. I don't know. She wants me to go get some tuna fish right now, but that's all.
okay, Karen. Maybe you should ask the I Ching about this. You might have to dig a little
Yeah,
deeper, get some kind of interpretation out of it. Okay, it's an interesting question out of left field. Thank you for asking, Patricia. Go ahead, please unmute.
I had the good fortune to give a paper in Beijing at the World Parliament of Philosophy recently.
Oh, wow.
And I was very surprised by the reaction of some of our colleagues there, Chinese colleagues, that I met during the middle of the sessions and so forth. And they would ask me what I presented on, and which I was in fear and trembling, but I did present on Lao Tzu, Tao Te Ching.
Yeah.
And these were philosophers of science, women, and they drew back in horror and said, I would never present on something like that. And I didn't know if there was some, understanding about Lao Tzu there, that he is not very favored these days, or was that just in reference to their particular specialties, or if you knew anything about that?
I think that's because those ladies, like you mentioned, that they are doing philosophy of science, right? Yeah, I think for those professors, Lao Tzu or Zhuangzi or even Confucius might not be their their thing. They might like Karl Popper, Thomas Kuhn, and some other Western philosophers. But for those Chinese philosophers of science, they even for some people, some colleagues that I know of, although I'm also doing philosophy of science and technology, they basically won't appreciate the wisdom of the ancient traditional Chinese philosophy, because I think they might think that this kind of traditional philosophy are not so useful for us to deal with the current problems in science and technology. But that's totally wrong, right? We can, of course, learn a lot from Tao Te Ching or some other classics from the other Chinese ancient philosophers to look at the contemporary problems in a adapted way. Of course, the ancient philosophers are living in a very different societies, but actually their wisdom are timeless. So I'm also trying to. Actually, I can see that there are some other Western philosophers trying to use the wisdom of Confucianism to deal with the AI ethics, especially the virtue, how to look at the AI problem from the virtue ethics point of view, because Confucius, Zhuangzi, and Lao Tzu, all of them have talked a lot about the common good, the basic virtues of our human beings. So they will be very useful, in despite of the change of times or the change of our societies. I think, but what you have mentioned is actually a very common phenomenon in the Chinese academia.
That was my understanding, is that there was a definite preference for
Yeah.
Confucianism, and indeed several of the colleagues I met over there referred to China as a Confucian country.
Yeah. Also, I think some Chinese professors would prefer the Western philosophy. They might think that the Western philosophy is more fancy. The traditional Chinese philosophy are so too old. But actually, for me, not only the wisdom of Confucius, but also the wisdom Socrates and Aristotle, all of them are very insightful, and we can learn a lot from their insights in our current study.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thanks, Patricia.
Mm-hmm.
And Patricia, you want to chime in, please? Please go ahead. Welcome. Nice to see you. I think you need to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, thanks a lot, Xiaojun, for your speech. I found it very interesting, your philosophical path and your history and your actual research. I really feel sympathetic. I feel the same kind of, my actual research goes into that direction. So really thanks a lot for your speech. And I think that technology and the speed and the spread of technology, in a way, globalize and make Western and Asian countries very near, because young people, they share applications and the same way to move and the same way to be dependent on technology. So in a way, they communicate with the same kind of language, of tools, of application, and this globalize the world. So what can we do as philosophers and as practical philosophers is, as you were telling before, and as Lou also were telling before in your dialogue, is to recover, to keep and to develop and to go deep into our human and cultural roots. So discovering our own traditions, because they go back in our past and they are like our human and collective roots. And at the same time, dialoguing, involving young people, knowing their tools. They are the way they communicate. So we have to know deeply their tools, but at the same time to engage them into a more human and so less depressive, less dependent way to be together in a kind of philosophical relationship, which is something that can make them more happy in a way, because they are very sad today. They are all the time, they're communicating with an instrument, a machine. So they are machine dependent, and that's awful. And then I met recently, I take a lecture in a middle school, because they invited me to explain and to say in a very simple way what philosophical practice is and what can help, what can do. So it was very, very nice, because they never met philosophy before. So it was really interesting. I invited them to put on a paper with some pens what they think that they are the main characteristic of artificial intelligence, IA, and of a human being. And it was so interesting and so fascinating how they could easily distinguish what is human and what is a machine. So intuition and wisdom and understanding, as Luke was telling before, understanding or creation or humor and irony. On the other side, imitation and copying and memory, the incredible capacity of memory of a machine, of course. So where man was superior and when machine can be superior to man, memory and accumulation of data and games and game solving, but not creation, not intuition, not humor. So it was so fascinating. They can easily understand that a human being can be conscious, self-conscious, not a machine. And this is a way to, in my opinion, to engage also young people into a philosophical, in a practical way, which is part of your work, of your research, actually, I guess. And a last question is, can you suggest me a Chinese author who is translated in English or any other language that I can read, like French, or who wrote a book about philosophical counseling in China now? I mean, a complete text translated into English of a Chinese production, making a sort of summary of what you are telling us, which is interesting, how China is moving into this field of philosophical practice. Is there any contemporary author, maybe you in the next few years, but an existing one that I can read to understand more what China is developing in these days, in these years, in this field, in the practical philosophy? Can you suggest one author, please?
Okay, thank you for your question. So I think Professor Pan has published one paper in the journal APPA journal, introducing the situation and the current state of philosophical practice in China, and also I have and also Xia Weiguo, right? Weiguo Xia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can
so, and also I have also published a paper in this topic with my colleagues, introducing the current situation, the institutions, and also the other practitioners in China, what they are actually doing, and what the research questions they are trying to address. So if you can, maybe you can also send an email to me. I will, so I can send this kind of papers to you. So you have also reminded me that maybe someday I can write some book on this topic. So it will be very interesting and very informational. Right now, although including myself and also Li Zhang, right, and also Zhi Yuan, so there are several colleagues here in China doing philosophical practice, basically under the supervision of Ru, and also some others like Professor Pan. So we have done a lot of work for the last 10 or 15 years. I think there should be some introductory book or more papers or some articles that should summarize the contributions, the research results of our work, and also it will be very useful for the other colleagues in China to know more about what we are doing and how they can maybe develop their own research, based on what we have done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Patricia, that's a great question, and thank you for the answer, Xiaojun. I think you're right. We want to have, and we should. This is really an inspiration. We could invite. APPA could invite some of our Chinese colleagues to write about this topic, and then we could make a special issue of our journal on it. That's one possibility.
I think you already published a special issue in this topic.
Well, we've published a few papers, Pan definitely, and Weiguo, Xia Weiguo, and also Wang Zhiwan has written a few different things for us. Now they were in New York. Wang, Weiguo, Xia Weiguo, and Wang Zhiwan were at City College for a year, and they both wrote papers for the journals as part of their work. And also, as you know, and I think you mentioned, Zhang Lizheng has published. She is the first PhD in philosophical counseling in China. And she teaches at Shandong Normal University. And she just published a book in China on philosophical counseling in Chinese. And that could be, we really need to get some translations going. So let's get on the AI. Let's get back to AI, large language, okay? We should be able to feed some of these Chinese manuscripts into large language models and get a reasonable English translation, which then we can edit. Once we have a facsimile of it, we can turn our own human editing skills into humanizing it. And then, Patricia, you'll have something at least in English, and then you could translate it into Italian. I mean, this can go
Exactly.
around. So
Yeah,
I think that would be
absolutely.
great if we were better informed. And then Rick has his hand up. Before I turn to Rick, I just want to share an anecdote with you, because when you were talking about being a Confucian culture, and that's our perception. And one of the main distinctions I like to draw between East Asia and the West is that we're more Aristotelian, and that's focused on the individual, and you're more Confucian, which is focused on the harmony of the group. And that's evident in the tremendous social cooperation that you get in East Asia, unlike the West, where we're constantly butting heads because everybody has their own way they want to do something. But I remember we had 1 year. We had a cohort, actually 2 cohorts of Korean students came to City College. Professor Kim, and from Kyungpook National University, and their government funded.
Eugene?
Yeah, and they brought a couple of dozen. They brought some undergraduates and some graduates, and I did special seminars for them on philosophical practice, because the Koreans are fantastically interested in this. They have many of the same kinds of things going on in South Korea as China. So we did a Socratic dialogue one afternoon with the undergraduates. So I put them in tables of 4, and the question that they wanted to address is, what is happiness? So we had a mini Socratic dialogue, and the most beautiful answer, I'll never forget it. The one group, they did their work and they scribbled and they discussed in dialogue, and then this one group came out with the following definition: happiness is walking down the street with friends.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
That is so beautiful and so Confucian, because it's shared. It's not, I'm happy because X, Y, or Z, happened to me. It's walking down the street with friends. It's a shared form of happiness, and I think that's very characteristically Confucian. I'll never forget it. It was one of the most beautiful Socratic dialogues you could imagine, right? So anyway, Patricia, thank you for the inspiration. We're going to put our heads together and figure out how to get some of the Chinese work into English.
Good.
Rick?
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Great to see you too. Rick, please.
Yeah, so can you hear me good?
Yeah, we hear you pretty well.
Great. 3 things. First, with Confucius versus Aristotle. In Aristotle's Ethics, he does say, no man would choose to live without friends, even if he could have all other goods. So there's a connection there. Couple of other things. I lead a weekly meditation for a group of philosophers, actually, and one of them is a man who loves his AI, and he's constantly sharing what he asks his AI, and we have a little app that we use to communicate with the group, and he's always posting. He asked the AI a million questions, and he has the AI acting like Confucius, acting like Socrates, and everything. I also have a philosophical counseling client who will ask me for my interpretation of her dreams. I'll do some dream work with her like Pierre Grimes does, a famous dream work using recently deceased pioneer in this field. But she asked the AI to give a Jungian, based on Carl Jung, Jungian interpretation. Carl Jung was big on dream interpretation of a particular dream, and it'll give a fascinating interpretation. But like, I will have had the kernel. She'll ask for mine, and then she'll read me what she asked it, and it's amazing. It's so much better than I am in terms of having digital philosophical counselors. And then she'll ask it for a Kabbalistic based on the Kabbalah, which is the Jewish mysticism, and it gives I'm not an expert on that, but it's also incredible how good this thing is. Okay, so now one other thing I just wanted to say all that. I'm fascinated about it. I don't want to be outsourced and no longer have clients. So I'm worried about this app. But Lou said, let's hope it doesn't get rid of philosophers altogether. But I think people, like Lou was saying this, people want to be in contact with real people. And I think one of the main reasons about this new global phenomenon of depression, particularly among the young, is something that started in even Lou and my generation, which was answering machines on a telephone. We used to be able to talk to people and being in human relationships, and then we could leave a message, which is asynchronous. That was the beginning. Now texts and all these apps, so much of it is asynchronous. And this young generation, being in synchronous relationships with other people is an option. That's just an option. In fact, it's an inconvenient option for many of them, And so I think this is that they're socially isolated. And I think studies have even shown that these new forms of widespread depression are different from depression in the past. They're primarily based on social isolation. And one of the things that's distinct about them is that people suffering from it, they're not even inclined to try to go socialize. Because I guess it's safer and more comfortable to be alone in their basement playing some video game or something. This is not good. And if your research can figure out ways to get AIs to invade this, because they're in this digital universe, to get them to become, what was that, better humans? I forget just to get them healthier. This is very promising. Of course, I'm worried about losing my job, but I'm also happy about the way that this will improve humanity. We hope. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about anything that I just said.
Okay, thank you so much, Rick. I think it's also very important because just Ru mentioned what the Korean students' definition of friendship, and also you mentioned about the social isolation in the younger generation. It's quite similar here in China. With the development and the popularization of social media, for our young students, they don't. But that's kind of paradoxical. I think as a human, right, we are social animals. Even for Aristotle, it seems that humans want friends, want the company, right? But some students, some young people, they don't really want to meet others. They just stay at home. They don't want to be called by the others. They want you to just leave a message, maybe send them some email, but they don't want to hear your voice, to see you in person. But that's really kind of a new kind of depression phenomena. In China, we have this kind of problem, and very similar in Korea, called empty heart disease. Empty heart. They don't have any, like, the essence of heart. They don't have any values inside. So that's partly due to the development of technology, with the use or the extreme use of or dependence on the social medias, but also I think with the development of technology, some students, not only the students, but also for all of us, we have to consider how we should live our life in the techno society, in more and more technological society. Because people and we are in kind of mediated by this kind of technology, like the Zoom platform, and also some other, we use WeChat in China, and also WhatsApp, right? So we cannot directly see each other. We cannot hug, but of course we can kind of do this kind of communication very efficiently. But if we are too dependent on this kind of tools, technological tools. Emotionally, we will think that we don't need others. We can actually survive in a kind of isolated way. That's actually not true from the philosophical viewpoint. Even for the Confucius, I think at the beginning of his teachings, he said that is it present that when we have friends to meet us, so it will be very a very pleasant, very good thing for us to have other friends, to have others in our cosmos, in our world, not just ourselves. So I think for our younger generation, even for some people that might have some, people might have different situations, personal situations, but in general, I think we have to communicate with others in more intimate ways, not just mediated ways.
Yeah. I'll add one thing to that. I think that the kind of human relationships that are disappearing are essential for becoming a functional person. They're so much more essential. People don't realize it's through relationships with other human beings that we become persons rather than just Homo sapiens, biological creatures. It's in interpersonal relationships. And these are substitutes for that. It's not the same. It's not as good. It's not as effective. And like you said, with that humanities thing, we're embodied beings. So, and in the latest cognitive science is 4E cognitive science: embodied, embedded, inactive, extended, and emotive. There's like 5 or 6 E's now. This is human nature from that Aristotelian point of view. We're not just social, political, rational animals. We're embodied, emotional, etc. We're cultural. We're meaning makers. All those different things. We're in a meaning crisis. I think Lou mentioned that phrase earlier. So all that kind of work that you're doing is just fascinating. And I want to see interpretations of that or translations in English. I think one of my papers got translated by your team. So thank you for you did the selection. You selected a paper by me.
I think
Rick
you
Rapetti.
wrote something about the pandemic.
About the pandemic, yes.
Yes. I remember that. Thank you for your contribution.
No, thank you for selecting it. Okay, thank you.
Great, you finally met in person. Here we go again. The technology hooked you up long before the
benefits of this digital universe.
Embodied, but at least it's interpersonal. Okay,
it's close. At least we've got the visual,
yes,
and the audio. Two senses.
We finally met. So Xiaojun, it was I think it's very beautiful. Your reference to Confucius on this theme that Rick is pointing out. It's so critical. And one of my editions says, I can paraphrase it, it's the Analects begins with this. It's verse 1. Confucius says, "Is it not delightful when friends visit from afar?"
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
1.1 in the Analects.
There you go. We get together with friends. This is the great delight. It's not, I got a text from my friend and he didn't say that. But to play the devil's advocate for just 1 minute, then we're going to wrap up because Rick, you always prompt me to do this, You're right about Aristotle. And of course, there's another quote supporting this point of view where he says, to live alone, a man must either be a beast or a god. But then Nietzsche gives us, Nietzsche jumps in on that and he says, there's a third possibility, says Nietzsche, you could be a philosopher. So that's the counterpoint.
And Lou, I think Lou and I have agreed on this before. During the pandemic, we enjoyed being away from everybody for a while so we could think and write.
Right.
Philosophers like it. We're monastics. We like the monastery life.
Partly. We still like to get together, but solitude is not a punishment for a thinker. That's for sure. It gives us a little peace and quiet, right? Xiaojun, I want to thank you so much. Henri, you're more than welcome. Henri just chimed in thanking you for this encounter. And Henri Colt is one of our certified members and a doctor from the West Coast and an author. And it's hi, Henri. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. We have so much, wealth of humanity in these meetings. It's really wonderful. And Xiaojun, you've been so great to share with us your insights and your experiences and what's going on in China. It's fantastic. And we're all very supportive. And we hope to see you again for sure. If all's well, I'll see you in Seoul this summer, and we'll continue
Yeah.
being human together. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you very much, everyone. Rick, you're on next month with the book club. You'll all get the notice of that, and we will carry on. So thanks again, everybody, for joining. Xiaojun, give our best regards to all of our esteemed colleagues in China, to Professor Pan and all our other friends, and we'll look forward
Yes,
to
you.
getting together this summer. Okay, but thank you so much. This will end up on YouTube, and then you'll be able to use your app to subtitle it in Mandarin, no doubt, or So yeah, Rick.
Did you take a picture? You like to take a
Well,
group
I always
picture?
like to take a picture, and I don't think, let me just change the view for a moment, because
Yeah.
some people have left, people had to leave. But anyway, smile, everyone. I don't need the picture. I've got the film, Rick. I could just excise a clip from it. Okay.
Oh, okay.
We don't
Okay.
need to take a snapshot because the film is doing it. So, yeah, if you want to show
I
yourselves
forgot.
for a second and smile and wave, and let's give Xiaojun our appreciation. Virtual round of applause for your contributions. And we'll all see you soon at the next Agora. Okay, Sasha, thanks for joining. It's very late.
Bye-bye.
Very late
Good
in
night.
Korea. And
Hey,
Xiaojun,
thank you
thanks
so
for
much.
getting up so early in the morning in China. There was no perfect time for this, but thank you so much.
I'm kind of sleepy.
Okay, go back to sleep. Okay, thank you again. Be well, everybody. And we'll
Thank
be
you.
back in
Hey,
Bye-bye,
Sasha.
everyone.
Hello.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Take care.
I
Bye-bye
hope
now.
to
Take care.
see you.
Ciao.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Just
Bye.